Over the many thousands of years since the inhabitants of the galaxy learned how to utilize the mysterious energy field known as the Force, there have been countless different Force abilities and techniques created and passed down for generations. Force abilities were a way for the early Force wielders to express themselves with this newfound power and pass down their knowledge to the next generation. So hit that subscribe button and let's break down every single known Force power in canon and how it works. So to start off, Galactic historians and scholars have divided the Force powers up into 3 aspects and 2 divisions. The 3 aspects were control powers, which were centered on the ability and control of one's own mind and body, sense powers, which focused on immersing the user in the Force around them and understanding the situation surrounding them, and then finally alter abilities. These were themed around changing the wielder's environment and the people that they were facing off against. And as for the 2 divisions, these are simply light side powers and dark side powers, although there is still debate about the grey area in the middle. But either way, that leads us to the first Force power, number 1, telekinesis. Now this one pretty much covers all of the basic Force powers you can think of, like Force push, pull, jump, choke, and comes under the category of alter and the alignment of grey because it can be used by both sides. Almost every Force user can use telekinesis because it's the most basic and essential to survival. Some of the more extreme use cases include Force wave or Force shockwave, which can be used to topple over many enemies at once, although that's about as complex as it gets in canon for telekinesis. Number 2, animal bond. Animal bond comes under the alter category and is very interesting because it has both a light and dark side variant, but neither can be used by the other side. The dark side variant tries to bend the will of the animal and subjugate it in order to be tamed, while the light side version focuses on connecting with and guiding the animal. Both were equally effective, with the light side variant being used by Obi-Wan Kenobi on Ryloth and Ezra Bridger using the dark side variant on the Fernox at Fort Anaxis. Number 3, Shatterpoint. Now, in Legends, this ability has a lot more detail behind it, but in canon, a Shatterpoint is a deeply complex Force phenomenon, almost similar to a fault line where major events had happened or were about to happen. A Force user with the Shatterpoint ability could then tap into these and get a glimpse at both the past and the future. The most famous user of this ability was Mace Windu, who used it during the Clone Wars, but in canon, Darth Sidious also sensed a Shatterpoint on board the shuttle Tydirium when it landed on Endor. Shatterpoint fell under the category of sense and had both a light and dark side alignment. Number 4, psychometry. Psychometry, or Force Echo, was another Force phenomenon which allowed a user to touch significant or historical objects and give them a view of what happened with them. When touching one of these significant objects, the psychometry user would be temporarily blinded with white light before receiving small amounts of information about the event that took place. Because of how powerful this ability was, the Jedi Council forbid Jedi from using it on weapons of combat, fearing that they may be overcome with the swell of the dark side if that weapon was used to kill someone. The most well-known users of this ability were Quinlan Vos and Cal Kestis, and they both became very skilled in it. The alignment for this ability is so far only light side, and it again falls under control. Number 5, Endure. Now, the Endure ability is really cool because it was invented by a Jedi Master named Crucitorn at the Battle of Nar Shaddaa when Dooku was still in the Order. Master Crucitorn was fully burnt alive and every inch of his skin burnt to black, but through Force Endure he was able to block all pain and keep himself alive. It's unknown how in the Bantha he survived after that, but Dooku was so inspired by this that he passed the knowledge on to 2 of his own Jedi students. To demonstrate, he placed a torture device on his own chest and activated it, but he felt no pain. Number 6, Force Illusion. We know next to nothing about this one in canon apart from one small line which states that it allowed its user to generate illusions towards other people. This puts it under the alter category, but the alignment is currently unknown. Number 7, Force Protection Bubble or Force Barrier. This one was aligned to neither the light or the dark and could be used for both offensive and defensive uses. It allowed its wielder to protect themselves from an external threat by putting up a wall of Force energy around them. We see Grogu use this ability on Tython from the light side perspective, and then the Night Sisters of Dathomir made heavy use of it from the dark side perspective. Number 8, Morchiro. This is a really fascinating Force ability which allowed its wielder to gradually slow down the vital functions of their victim, eventually killing them. This was an ancient Jedi art, and despite being a light side ability, it was highly forbidden because of its brutality. Only one Jedi was ever permitted to use it by the Council, being Yaddle. Number 9, Precognition. Precognition, or Third Sight as it was known, was a Force ability mainly used by Anakin Skywalker to peer into the future and know when an attack was about to come. Master Sifo-Dyas was also gifted with this ability, but when he used it to predict the Clone Wars happening, he was immediately expelled from the Jedi Council for being a warmonger. On top of this, many Chiss females were gifted with this ability and used it to help in navigation. Number 10, Mind Trick. Now, the Mind Trick has 2 different branches just like Animal Bond, with one being called Mind Touch for the light side, and one called Mind Control for the dark siders. Both of these achieved pretty much the same goal of altering one's decision making, but Mind Touch simply guided them to that point while Mind Control forced them there. Personally, I don't see a difference. That's just a bit of Jedi propaganda there. Number 11, Force Lightning. Again, Force Lightning has 2 variants. the dark side variant, which swells the dark side of the Force, and the light side variant known as electric judgment, which channels its wielder's sense of justice. Plo Koon was a notable user of this and blew a guy's head off just because he felt a strong sense of justice. Number 12, Force Orb. The Orb ability is a very unique one, primarily used by Jedi from aquatic planets like Kit Fisto. It allowed its wielder to create an orb of pure Force energy under the water, letting people breathe in it, and also for attack. Number 13, Metamorphosis. In canon, the Metamorphosis ability really couldn't be used by any regular Force user, but it was used by the gods of Mortis, also called the Ones, to transform into their animal forms at will. Number 14, Force Meld. The Force Meld ability allowed a user who was extremely strong in the light side of the Force to connect the minds of those around them to their own. This allowed the wielder to sense the feelings and thoughts of everyone in the network and let them give instructions to coordinate a battle. Force Meld was famously used during the Hetzel hyperspace disaster by Master Avar Kriss during the time of the High Republic. Because of how vast this ability was, it was in all three categories but could only be used by very strong lightsiders. Number 15, Tudominus. Tudominus, or Force Deflection, was an ability used to absorb dense pockets of energy like those from blaster bolts or lightsabers. This was a difficult but fairly common ability used by the likes of Master Yoda, Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, and many more. Number 16, Force Sense. This one is one of the most basic Force abilities out there and could be used by almost everyone. It allowed its wielder to sense the emotions of those around them and the ripples in the Force. This, along with Force Sight, was how the Mirror Luca species were able to see despite being blind. Number 17, Mekuderu. This one is actually one of the most interesting Force abilities in the current canon, and basically when activated, it gave its wielder an intuitive knowledge and understanding of mechanical systems. This was used by Darth Vader many times to repair his suit and also to attach a new leg when he was defeated by Kirak in filler. Some even believe that this ability is responsible for Anakin being so good with droids from a young age. Number 18, Force Sight or Farsight. Farsight is the ability that allows Force users to see their surroundings without the use of their eyes. It enhances the wielder's spatial perception and can let them spot enemies behind walls. Major users of this ability were of course Kanan Jarrus in Rebels and Luke Skywalker in the OT, but almost all Jedi at some point in their life were forced to use it. Number 19, Force Rage. Sadly, we have very limited information about this one from the Star Wars games in canon, but it channels the dark side of the Force into the user's emotion, increasing their rage and enhancing their lightsaber attacks. This was used heavily by Darth Vader and his grandson Kylo Ren. Number 20, Memory Rub. Memory Rub allows its wielder to wipe certain events out of someone's memory. This is the ability that the father of Mortis used on Anakin Skywalker to make him forget the future he saw of him becoming Darth Vader, and required one to be extremely proficient in the dark side. Number 21, Force Visions or Premonitions. This one isn't really an ability, but since it required one to be so strong in the Force to use, I'll put it here anyway. Force Visions allowed users to see into the future, but they were not always accurate and often misled the person that they happened to. Number 22, the ability to become a Force Ghost. After completing a specialized training discovered first by Qui-Gon Jinn, one could transcend into the cosmic Force upon their death and return to the living world as a Force Ghost. Despite not going through the training, in the moment of Anakin Skywalker's death, Obi-Wan saw that he had been redeemed and chose to give him one final gift, the training to become a Force Ghost. Darksiders can also become Force Ghosts, but only when attached to an object of significance to their life. An example of this is Darth Momin, whose essence remained attached to his helmet after his death. Number 23, Pyrokinesis or Fiery Energy. This was an ability used by Darksiders that produced thick blue fire and even allowed Palpatine to grab Ezra from inside the world between worlds. Other than that, we have no idea what else it does in canon. Number 24, Bleeding. This is how lightsabers become red in canon. A user must pour all of their hatred and anger into a kyber crystal, forcing it to bleed with the dark side of the Force. Darth Vader used this on the crystal of Kirak in filler after he killed him to gain his first ever Sith lightsaber. Number 25, Force Healing and Force Cleansing. We don't currently know exactly how Force Healing works in canon, but we do know that it can heal a person at the expense of the healer's own life force. Some people believe that it is a dark side ability that can be used to circumvent death, but we really just don't know yet. Another branch of this ability is Force Cleanse, which can purify a kyber crystal that is bleeding. This is what Ahsoka Tano did to the lightsabers of the Sixth Brother to gain her white lightsabers, the same ones we see in Star Wars Rebels and The Mandalorian. Number 26, Force Speed. Force Speed was the ability seen in The Phantom Menace, and it allowed its user to increase their running speed for a short time. The reason it was rarely ever used was because it could very quickly drain the user's force energy, leaving them extremely vulnerable to attack. Number 27, Alter Environment. This one is an extremely unique force ability that was used by Bendu to summon a storm on Adelon during Thrawn's attack on the Rebel base in Star Wars Rebels. It was also used during the time of the High Republic, and it allowed its wielder to influence nature and cause weather events. Number 28, Force Scream. This one is actually really fun, and it allows its user to screech out a debilitating scream, sending shockwaves through the Force and disorientating the opponent. It is firmly a dark side ability and was used by Palpatine in his office in Revenge of the Sith. Number 29, Sith Sorcery, Sith Magic, or Sith Alchemy. In canon, we don't really know much about these arcane dark side powers except that it was used by Darth Sidious and Dooku in the Clone Wars, but it was also involved in the horrid Project Blackwing which created zombie stormtroopers. I'm surprised they brought that to canon. It was also used on the reforged helmet of Kylo Ren to strengthen its protection. Number 30, Force Projection. Force Projection, also known as Simul Futurus, was an ability that allowed its wielder to project the false image of them to anywhere else in the galaxy. It required extreme concentration and focus, and using it poured the life essence of the user into the cosmic force. If used for too long, it could result in death, just like what happened to Luke Skywalker, and it was strictly a light side force ability. Number 31, Force Stasis. This force ability allowed its user to freeze almost any physical object in place, including humans, even if it was in the air. It often manifested as a shimmering, transparent energy shield when used, and its most common target was blaster bolts or other people. Number 32, Battle Meditation. Sadly, in canon, Battle Meditation hasn't been expanded upon too much, but we know that it was a light side force ability that significantly boosted the morale, stamina, and overall power of a person's allies on the battlefield. On top of that, it made the enemy fighting force far weaker and removed their will to fight. It was a very rare ability that was primarily used by Masters Adi Gallia, Mace Windu, and Oppo Rancisis, as well as Luke Skywalker later on. Number 33, Force Stealth. This power actually has two branches. The light side version, which simply alters one's presence in the Force, and the dark side version, which suppresses and subjugates the Force around the wielder. This is the version Palpatine used to hide from the Jedi. Number 34, Force Empathy. Force Empathy was a power that, when used, allowed the wielder to feel the exact emotions of the person that it was used on, and in its dark side variant could even manipulate those emotions. It was a pretty rare ability amongst the Jedi Order, but was particularly common among younglings from the Genetian subspecies of humans. Number 35, Sever Force. This one is as simple as it sounds. A Force user who enacts this ability completely cuts himself off from the Force temporarily. This was notably used by Luke Skywalker, Sia Junda, and Cal Kestis when they believed that the Force could no longer help them. Number 36, Essence Transfer. Essence Transfer was a Force power invented by Darth Plagueis which allowed him to move his Force essence to another host's body. After learning the ability from his master though, Darth Sidious killed Plagueis, never giving him the chance to use his new discovery. Palpatine then went on to use it on himself, surviving on Exegol after his defeat by Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. In canon, we currently don't know how it works, but that is being explored in The Mandalorian Season 2 in The Bad Batch with Mount Tantus, Grogu's blood, and the Snoke tanks, giving us a glimpse into this dark science. Number 37, Force Drain. Force Drain gives its user the ability to drain the life essence out of any other living being. This was used by Palpatine on Rey and Kylo Ren to rejuvenate himself, as well as Mother Talzin on Count Dooku when the two came face to face in the Son of Dathomir comics. The Night Sister version of this technique was far more painful. There was also, weirdly enough, a light side version of the technique which could be used to funnel the life essence of one being into another, like what happened on Mortis between Anakin Skywalker on Ahsoka Tano and the daughter of Mortis. Number 38, Mind Probe. Mind Probe was an extremely powerful Force ability that allowed its user to sense and sift through the thoughts, emotions, and memories of the victim. This was a dark side Force ability, and it often left its wielders feeling angry after using it. So that is every single Force power in Star Wars canon that we currently know. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed, and check out all of the lightsaber types in canon on screen now. I will see you in the next one.